All right, let's get ready for today because we're doing a deep dive into the world of habits. You know, we always like to go deep on these topics. So today's source material is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh, yeah, I've heard a lot about that one. Should be interesting to hear what he has to say about habits.
Oh, we've got some excerpts here to dive into. I'm really excited to see how these small, everyday actions can lead to big results like he claims.
Yeah, that's always a fascinating area. I think what I like about Clear is that he doesn't just throw theories out there. You know, he actually uses his own life experiences and connects them to the science of habit formation. I mean, he's been through a lot, so I think that makes him relatable.
Yeah, and his story is a powerful example of that. Like, this guy had a major setback in high school. Baseball injury, broken bones, he was even in a coma. But it was during his recovery that he discovered the power of these small, consistent actions.
It's like he stumbled upon a secret formula for success through this injury. He had to relearn how to do basic things like walking and talking. But by focusing on tiny improvements every day, he was able to not only recover, but excel. Like, get this, 6 years after that injury, he was named the top male athlete at Denison University.
Wow, that is incredible. And it really proves his point that you don't need some massive life change to see big results. It's those small 1% improvements that add up over time.
Exactly. Think of it like compound interest. You put a small amount in the bank consistently, and over time it grows exponentially.
Okay, I'm following you.
So it's the same principle with habits. Imagine getting just 1% better at something each day. By the end of the year, you would be 37 times better than when you started.
Whoa, okay, that puts things into perspective. So you're saying if I wanted to learn a new language, I shouldn't get overwhelmed by the whole thing. I just need to focus on making small, consistent progress each day.
Precisely. And that's why he calls them atomic habits. They're the tiny building blocks of bigger changes. But here's the catch. Just like compound interest can work both ways, so can habits. If you're not careful, negative habits can compound too.
Oh, that's a good point.
Think about procrastination or unhealthy eating. Those small choices you make can have a huge impact over time.
So it's not just about building good habits, but it's also about being aware of the bad ones and actively trying to break those patterns. This is really making me think about my goals differently. Like, it's not just about the destination, it's about the system I have in place to get there.
Exactly. Clear actually challenges the conventional wisdom of focusing solely on goals. He argues that it's a solid system that really drives success. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you're a basketball coach and you forget about winning the championship. You ignore it completely and just focus on making sure your team practices effectively every single day. Do you think you'd still see good results?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You're basically setting your team up for success by focusing on the process, not just the end goal.
Right. So instead of obsessing over losing 20 pounds, you should focus on building a system of healthy eating and exercise habits, making those small changes each day.
The weight loss would happen naturally as a result of that system.
Exactly. It's about shifting your mindset from achieving outcomes to building sustainable systems. And Clear breaks down how to do this by introducing the 3 layers of behavior change.
Okay, I'm listening. 3 layers, huh?
Yeah. The first layer is outcomes, which is what most people tend to focus on, the results they want to achieve. Things like getting a promotion or running a marathon or learning a new skill.
Right, those are the things we all want to achieve.
But focusing on outcomes alone can be frustrating because it neglects the process of getting there.
So it's like admiring someone's six-pack abs, but not thinking about the hours of training and discipline that went into it.
You got it. The second layer is processes. This is where the real work happens. The actions you take, the systems you implement, the habits you build. It's about showing up and doing the work consistently even when you don't feel like it.
So it's the difference between wanting to write a book and actually sitting down and writing every single day, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Now, the third layer, and perhaps the most important, is identity. This is where lasting change really begins. It's about who you believe you are at your core, your self-image.
So instead of saying, I want to be more productive, I should be saying, I am a productive person.
Exactly. It's a subtle shift in perspective, but it's powerful. If you see yourself as a healthy person, you're more likely to make choices that align with that identity.
I like that.
Your actions become an extension of who you believe you are.
Wow, this is really making me think about some of my own habits. Like, maybe I'm not as disciplined as I thought, because deep down, I don't really see myself as a disciplined person. That's kind of a mind-blowing realization.
It's a powerful concept to unpack. And to help you understand and change any habit, Clear introduces what he calls the 4 laws of behavior change.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's hear them.
These laws offer a practical framework for making or breaking any habit. So the first law is make it obvious. And this is all about awareness because, we often go through life on autopilot, not realizing the cues that trigger our habits.
Yeah, it's like our brain is constantly scanning for those familiar patterns, and as soon as it finds one, boom, it just kicks into habit mode without us even thinking about it.
Exactly. Clear talks about this technique used by Japanese train conductors to reduce errors. It's called pointing and calling.
Pointing and calling.
Yeah, they point at each signal and call out its status, like signal is green or signal is red.
Huh.
It might seem overly simple, but by doing this, they're forced to be more present and aware, which actually drastically cuts down on mistakes.
Wow, that's wild. I wonder if I could apply that to my own work. Like maybe I should start verbally acknowledging each step in my process to avoid making those silly errors.
It's worth a try. Bringing that awareness to your actions can really make a difference, and Clear offers a helpful tool for this. It's called the Habit Scorecard.
Okay, a score.
Basically, you just list out all your daily habits and categorize them as good, bad, or neutral.
So it's like taking inventory of your autopilot behaviors.
Exactly. It's like holding up a mirror to your day and saying, okay, let's see what's really going on here.
I like that.
And once you've identified your habits, the next step is to optimize your environment. Make those good habits obvious and the bad ones invisible.
This makes me think of when I was trying to cut back on sugary drinks. I had to literally remove all the soda from my house. Out of sight.
Exactly. Clear calls this designing your environment. And it could be as simple as rearranging your workspace to minimize distractions or putting your gym clothes out the night before so you're more likely to work out in the morning.
It's like setting up those little nudges that make it easier to do the right thing.
Exactly. Now, the second law is make it attractive. And this taps into the reward system of our brains.
Okay, how so?
Well, we're naturally drawn to things that feel good, those things that release dopamine, those feel-good chemicals.
That explains why it's so hard to resist that extra slice of cake or scroll through social media for hours.
Exactly. It's all about chasing that dopamine hit. And Clear uses this really fascinating example to illustrate this point. He talks about this scientist who studied herring gulls.
Herring gulls?
Yeah, and he noticed that the chicks would peck at the red spot on their parents' beaks to signal they were hungry.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
So the scientists decided to test this further by creating fake beaks with even bigger redder spots.
Okay, and what happened?
Well, the chicks went crazy for these fake beaks. They were pecking at them even more intensely than the real ones.
So they were drawn to the exaggerated version of the reward cue. That's so interesting. So you're saying our brains are wired to seek out those amplified signals of pleasure?
Exactly. And you see this everywhere, especially in how companies design products. They use what Clear calls hyperpalatable combinations of salt, sugar, and fat to hit those bliss points that keep us coming back for more.
Okay, this makes a lot of sense. It's like those potato chips that are designed to melt in your mouth, making it almost impossible to stop at just one. But how do we use this knowledge to our advantage when it comes to building good habits?
Well, that's where a technique called temptation bundling comes in.
Temptation bundling.
Yeah, it's about pairing something you want to do with something you need to do. For example, let's say you love listening to podcasts, but you struggle to make time for exercise. You could try only listening to your favorite podcasts while you're on the treadmill or going for a walk.
Oh, I like that. It's like tricking your brain into associating something you enjoy with something you've been avoiding.
Exactly. One of Clear's readers actually hacked his stationary bike to work only when he was watching Netflix.
Wow, that is genius.
Now let's move on to the third law. Make it easy. And this is about reducing friction and making good habits the path of least resistance. Think about those hyperpalatable foods we were talking about. They are so tempting because they're so easy to consume.
That's so true. It's way easier to order takeout than it is to cook a healthy meal from scratch.
Exactly. And to make those good habits stick, we got to make them easier. Clear emphasizes the importance of repetition here.
Repetition.
Yeah, when we repeat an action consistently, our brains actually create these mental shortcuts, making it easier and more automatic over time. It's like carving a path through the woods.
The more you walk it, the easier it gets.
Exactly. And to help you overcome that initial hurdle of starting a new habit, Clear introduces what he calls the 2-minute rule.
Okay, the 2-minute rule, I'm intrigued.
So the idea is to break down your desired habit into a ridiculously easy 2-minute version.
So instead of saying, I'm going to run a marathon, you would say, I'm going to put on my running shoes and jog for 2 minutes.
Exactly, because starting is often the biggest obstacle.
Yeah.
But once you've overcome that inertia, it's much easier to keep going.
I like that. It takes the pressure off.
Right. And then once you've mastered the 2-minute version, you can gradually increase the duration and intensity. Remember, the key is to start small and stay consistent.
Small steps, big results. I'm starting to see a pattern here. Now, what about that fourth law? What's the final piece of the puzzle? All right, lay it on me. What's that fourth law all about?
So the fourth law is make it satisfying. It's all about tapping into that reward system in our brains, but this time focusing on the immediate gratification we get after completing a desired action.
Okay, so like giving yourself a little pat on the back each time you stick to the plan, a little dopamine boost to keep those good habits rolling.
Exactly, but there's a catch. Our brains are kind of hardwired to prioritize those immediate rewards over the delayed gratification.
Tell me about it.
It's a constant battle between what we should be doing and what feels good right now.
A battle I often lose.
But Clear says we can use this to our advantage
Really, Al?
by using visual cues to track our progress.
Okay, I like where this is going.
He gives an example of this in the book. It's called the paperclip strategy.
The paperclip strategy?
Yeah, so there was this sales guru, and he would start each day with 2 jars, one full of paper clips and the other empty.
Okay, 2 jars, paper clips.
After every sales call he made, he'd move 1 paper clip from the full jar to the empty one.
Interesting.
And his goal was to empty the first jar by the end of the day.
That's pretty clever, actually. I could do something like that, Instead of paper clips, maybe I could move marbles from one jar to another as I finish chapters in the book I'm writing.
There you go. It's about making it visual. That way you have a reminder of your progress. It creates a sense of accomplishment, and it reinforces that habit loop. It doesn't have to be complicated. You could just use a simple calendar and mark off each day you stick to your new habit.
Yeah, I like that.
The important thing is to find a way to make it satisfying. We also have to remember to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's so easy to get caught up in those big, audacious goals and then feel like I failed if I don't hit them perfectly every time.
Right. We often forget to acknowledge those little victories that keep us moving forward.
But celebrating those small wins could actually be a good way to change my perspective and keep me motivated.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that progress isn't always linear. Those small wins are actually paving the way for bigger achievements.
Small wins, big achievements.
Now, while these 4 laws are a great framework for habit formation, Clear also talks about some more advanced tactics for those who want to go from good to great.
Oh, okay, like what?
One of the most interesting is the idea of aligning your habits with your natural strengths.
So you're saying it's not just about working hard, but also about working smart by focusing on areas where you already have a natural advantage.
You got it. Clear actually debunks the myth that success is all about talent,
Right.
While genes definitely play a role, he says that our environment and the choices we make have a huge impact on how those genes are expressed.
Okay, that makes sense.
He uses the example of Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer. Phelps has this body type that's just perfect for swimming long torso, short legs. But imagine if he had pursued running instead. He probably still would have been a good runner, but he wouldn't have reached that same level of success.
It's about playing to your strengths, right?
Exactly. Clear suggests that we ask ourselves questions like, what feels like fun to me but work to others? Or where do I get greater returns than the average person?
I like that. It's about finding your unique advantage.
Once you've identified your strengths, it's important to find that sweet spot of challenge, what he calls the Goldilocks rule.
Goldilocks rule.
Yeah, it means we're most motivated when we're working on tasks that are right on the edge of our current abilities, not too hard, but not too easy.
This makes me think of those video games that get harder as you level up.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Clear also says that boredom can be a big obstacle to success.
Really, boredom. I always thought that was just a sign of laziness.
It's actually pretty common. Boredom comes up when we've mastered a certain skill. As something becomes more routine, it starts to feel less exciting, even if it's something we genuinely enjoy.
So it's like the thrill of learning something new wears off, and we're left with the reality of practice.
Exactly. And this is where a lot of people give up. But those who achieve extraordinary results are often the ones who can embrace the boredom.
Those who can find a way to stay motivated even when the initial excitement fades.
Exactly. It's about falling in love with the process.
One of the things that really stuck with me from this book was when Clear said, it is the idea of pleasure that we chase. We seek the image of pleasure that we generate in our minds. At the time of action, we do not know what it will be like to attain that image, or even if it will satisfy us. The feeling of satisfaction only comes afterward. It's so true. We build up these expectations in our minds, but the actual experience doesn't always live up to the hype.
It's a good reminder to be present in the moment. Find joy in the process.
Well, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me. I've learned so much about the science behind habit formation and how to use it to improve my life.
That's great to hear. As we wrap up this deep dive into atomic habits, I encourage you to think about the ideas we discussed today. What small changes can you make today to create the life you want? Remember, even the tiniest actions can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. We are all architects of our own lives, one habit at a time. And that wraps up our deep dive into atomic habits. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep into the world of knowledge.